Hi everyone, this is Roman Jacquez from theaircoders.com, and in this tutorial I will show you how to create a WCF RESTful service exposing JSON. REST, or short for Representational State Transfer, has gained widespread acceptance across the web as a simpler alternative to SOAP and web service description language-based web services. Some of the most important characteristics of RESTful services are the use of HTTP methods explicitly. That's one of the key characteristics of a RESTful web service is, the explicit use of HTTP methods using GET, POST, PUT, etc. Be stateless. Stateless, that means, no state being held locally in between requests. As a REST web service application or client includes within the HTTP headers and body of a request all of the parameters, all the context and data needed by the server-side component to generate a response, so that you can receive it, after making a request and then receiving a response. Expose directory structure like URIs. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, in which we make the REST web service intuitive enough to the point that each URI request is easy to guess and construct. And transfer XML, JSON, or both, which are the two serialization formats that we use for RESTful services. Okay, so diving right into the code, we're going to create a project in Visual Studio. We're going to go File, New Project. Under WCF, we're going to select the WCF service application, and we're going to create a WCF RESTful service called the Person JSON service. So we're going to create a RESTful service that will expose people information as JSON. So we're going to create it like this, and I'm going to go through every step. So we just click OK. And right now we just get the full information that we get out of a WCF service. After this project then will be converted as a RESTful service. We get like some default files. I'm just gonna delete those so I can start from scratch. So I'm just gonna get rid of these files over here, and I'm gonna create my own SVC file. So add new item, and then I'm going to select WCF service. I'm going to call this Person JSON service. Okay, so now what we need to define is this is one of the most important things that we're going to define now. For example, let's say we're going to define the operations that will be exposed through this service, but it's just not like a regular SOAP service in which you define your operations by naming them operation contracts and putting some other attributes. But in this case, for a RESTful service, we need to specify certain attributes. But first, let's create the plumbing of this whole application. First, we need to create our data contracts, or the information that will be passed back and forth. So I'm not gonna create another file. I'll just probably create it right under here. So I'm gonna create a public class. I'm gonna call it person. This class will just hold the properties, and it just be like just the object that we will serialize into JSON, and we will collect information from the user and expose it as JSON as well. So I'm gonna create a few properties here. So I'm just gonna put like maybe with a first name. I'm gonna create also like a last name and age. So I could try that. And last name and age. So okay, so now for a data contract to be valid and for this object to be serialized, I need to put, of course, the corresponding attributes, which are data contract for each one of these, and data members for each one of the members within my data contract. So I'm just going to create these. And then after I create my data members, I need to specify also the name of, let's say, this property and how it will be exposed in the JSON. Real quick, you can just add another attribute to this within this attribute, like a sub attribute called name. So I'm just gonna put the same name of the property that has been defined. So I'm just gonna say that the name is first name. In this case, the name will be last name, and for this one, the name will be age. You can even specify one for the data contract. We can do that. So I'm going to call it this person. Okay, so then we're all set. Now, I have my data contract already in place. This is what will be serialized as JSON. But where do we specify that this will be exposed as JSON or serialized as JSON? Well, you define the operation contract to expose a collection, in this case an array of person objects. How do I do that? So I say person, I make it into an array, and I'm gonna say get person, get people, let's call it. Okay, so then this operation will expose a collection of person objects that I will create statically, at least for this example. Maybe you can just retrieve this information from a database, from the entity framework, or some other means. But in this case, I'm just gonna hard code this information for you so that at least we can do this example. But the key part over here in the WCF, the most important elements of a REST application include the web get and web invoke attributes, and the new binding web HTTP binding in connection with the web HTTP endpoint behavior. When we set up the some values on the web.config, we're going to show you that. But at least I'm going to show you then the key part that you need to do on this operation. So what you need to define is a web invoke, and then you have to bring in the system.serviceModel.web in order to define this. So the web invoke has several parameters that you need to pass into this attribute. The most important one is the method, which is again the method that you're going to utilize in order to make the requests and responses. So in this case is get. The second parameter would be then the body style, or actually how you're going to define how the information will be like either wrapped or just shown as a bare, as in its bare format. So if you just say body style and then you say web message body style dot bare, you have some other options. You have wrap request or response, but you would want to go with bare so that you could just get the bare information, the bare JSON. If you tried this like on Internet Explorer, let's say, you would just get a file like a JSON file, a bare JSON file. If you tried it like in other browsers like Firefox or Chrome, you would actually or using like a plugin, you can actually view it in the browser. So you want to get the bare information. Then the next important one is the response format. So what is the response format? In a RESTful service, you can either define JavaScript object notation, JSON, or XML. In our case, the web message format is going to be JSON. So you can define it right here. And the URI template, which is how you will make the request and how it will be requested through the URI. Whenever you make the request, is going to be get people. For example, you can call this anything you want. You just need to remember that whatever you define here is what you're gonna use in order to make the call to get the information from the RESTful service. Because remember, we're making a GET request, so we're passing it through the through the HTTP request through the URI. So you can just close right here and just define this. So this is the operation contract, of course, of your service contract, and the web invoke attribute. And let me just split it right here so that we can see it. So we have the method get, body style, we're gonna make it bare, response format is JSON, and URI template get people. So now why don't we implement this in our SVC file? So we just open this right away. We can just delete this generated for us, and we're just going to implement the interface right away. By implementing the interface, it just provides us with the method that will be exposed through the RESTful service and will show us our information. Here I'm just going to hard code something real quick. It's just for you to see how we can expose information. I'm just going to create real quick like a list of person objects, and I'm going to call it people. New list of person, and right away I'm just gonna define a few like hard-coded objects of person. So new person, first name Roman, last name Jaquez, age 31. I'm just gonna find a few more here. James Lorenzo, age 35. Another person right here. Vladimir Heredia, 32. By the way, James Lorenzo and Vladimir Heredia are my co-workers, my colleagues here in the Coders. Okay, so after I have defined my people, I'm just gonna say here, return people to array. By doing this, I'm actually returning all the person objects from within the list. Again, this list has just been constructed here for tutorial purposes. But let's say in your case, you might be retrieving this information from a database, and then just retrieving it, converting it to the like in this case, populating these objects, these data contracts, and then converting those to an array so that they could be exposed.